setting my traps all across the land. Being free, ain't it grand? Living the life of a mountain man.
Well, howdy again, Burnt Spoon, Mountain Man from Palomar. You know, I think what we're going to look at today are pine trees. The one growing behind me is probably one of the most common pines here on Palomar, the Coulter Pine. It's not the same Coulter as John Coulter, the famous mountain man. This guy was a naturalist, C-O-U-L-T-E-R. Coulter pines are stately, they grow very large, and they have giant pine needles on them. Let's take a look at a cluster of Coulter pine needles. We'll just pull them off right there. And you can see, you know, there's like 3 of them right there. 1, 2, 3. We're not going to just drop this on the ground, and I'll tell you why. Because we're going to take a bunch of these and make tea to drink out of pine needles. Any pine tree, you can take the needles and brew up a tea. The other thing that the pine gifts us with are pine nuts. Yeah, check those out down at the store. But pine nuts are the seeds inside pine cones. Now here are 2 pine cones from the Coulter pine. Look how big they are. I think there's only one other pine tree that has a larger pine cone than the Coulters. Now we're going to have to open these things up a little bit to see if we can find any seeds. These fell off, about 6 months ago, so they've been laying on the ground for quite a while. One important thing to remember when you go picking up pine cones is they have a lot of pitch on them. So I like to wear leather gloves when I'm picking up and handling pine cones. Let's go ahead and open up. You can see where part of the cone is already opened up because of the heat from the sun, but part of it remained closed, and I'm just going to lever this one open right here and see if there's something. Hey, I think I see a pine nut in there. Let me see if I can grab. Go ahead and get your surgical tweezers that all of you have in the kitchen drawer, and let's reach down in there and see if we can actually get that pine nut. Of course, you got to remember these pine cones are old and they've been laying on the ground all winter long. That's what's left of one of the pine nuts. When you go searching for pine nuts, you may want to find pine cones just as they are on the tree itself or just after they've fallen. Get right on it, because the birds and the squirrels, they love pine. I mean, who doesn't? Everybody loves pine nuts. Down in the desert, they're called the piñón pine. I'm sure you guys have heard about the native people harvesting tons and tons of piñón pine nuts. So there you have it. That's the Coulter pine. You know, a lot of us, besides flour and nuts, we like greens, salad greens. And this time of the year, in early spring, is the time of the year that miner's lettuce is ready to eat. Let's take a look at miner's lettuce. It's all in front of me right here, just like downtown. And you can easily recognize miner's lettuce because of this sort of bowl-shaped leaf with the little white flower stem on the inside. What part do you eat? The whole thing. I love salad, don't you? The only thing I want to caution you about is where you gather wild foods. First of all, it has to be legal. And second of all, you don't want to do it like along roadsides and stuff, because there are too many pollutants. Don't go into somebody's yard or in their field where they have sprayed pesticides or insecticides. That's not good. Gathering wild foods in the wild where it's legal and you're not on anybody's property, you know, that's where you want to go. There are many wild greens, like miner's lettuce, that grow in unusual places. And when I say unusual, I'm actually in a vegetable garden right now that is fallow. But because the earth has been disturbed here, there's a plant that oftentimes is found in areas of disturbed earth. And it's this one right here called lamb's quarters. lamb's quarters. Another local name for it is goosefoot. And if you look at the shape of that leaf, it's supposed to resemble a goose's foot. Lamb's quarters or goosefoot. Lamb's quarters is one of the most nutritious and healthy and edible at any stage. Raw, a little chewy, or cooked. I think it improves if you steam it. I don't boil my pot herbs like nettles and lamb's quarters. I steam them. And I think it preserves more of the nutrition and more of the flavor. Okay, we're going to make some pine needle tea out of those Coulter pine needles. Remember, each one needle had 3 long needle leaves on it. And we got to cut them up first after we've gathered them. So I'm going to pull my scalping knife. Oh, I know what you're thinking. Does he really scalp people? Back in the fur trade days, there were a couple of different styles of knife. The ones with a point on them like this were usually referred to as scalping knives. Doesn't mean that's what you do with them. It's a skinning knife. But I find it to be probably the best knife for cutting things up. So we're going to go ahead and chop off these ends of the pine needles. We don't really want to cook those. And then the rest of them we're just going to kind of chop up into small pieces, and we're going to put them right into our kettle here. So let's just do that. Now you can do this out in the field and make a pot of tea anywhere. Because as I mentioned, all pine needles are edible or teable. High carbon steel, like this blade right here, can be sharpened with a file. Okay, we're going to take these pine needles, put them in our pot, and then we'll add water, and we'll start boiling. Here we go. We'll just add some water. Put it on the campfire. Oh, it's a modern campfire. Okay, well, we're ready to sample our pine needle tea. We've got it steeping here in this little kettle, and I've got a little strainer that I'll pour the tea through so we don't get any floaters in the cup. So let's go ahead, and of course we're going to drink out of a tin cup. That's what mountain men drink out of, you know what I'm saying? And let's see, here we go. Kind of an interesting looking color there. Actually, we didn't get any floaters in there at all, did we? But you can see the pine needles, and it has a little bit of that kerosene look. Don't let that fool you. How does it taste? Santé. Oh, you're not going to find this at any restaurant. You got to go out into Mother Nature. Pine needle tea.
Oh, mountain man, setting my traps all across the land. Being free, ain't it grand? Living the life of a mountain man. Well, I started out from old St. Louis in 1823 as a keelboat man in Ashley's crew, as green as I could be. Well, we sailed up the